Mr. Speaker.
Present us, O Lord, in all our doings with thy most gracious favour, and further us with thy continual help, that in all our works begun, continued, and ended in thee, we may glorify thy holy name, and finally by thy mercy attain everlasting life. Amen. Introduction of guests. Recognize the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ask leave for an extended introduction.
Minister's requested leave for an extended introduction. Is leave granted?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to all of my colleagues. Today, I am honored to introduce Matt Morrison, the Chief Executive Officer of Penwar. Give a wave, Matt.
Here, here.
And joining him today is Scott Hunter from the Ministry of Trade and Export Development from the Government of Saskatchewan, Director of U.S. Relations. They are here today with the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, or Penwar. Penwar is a public-private partnership of governments, businesses, and non-government organizations from the Northwest region of our continent of North America. Penwar includes the American states of Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, the Canadian provinces British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the territories of Yukon and Northwest Territories. Combined, Mr. Speaker, we are the 11th largest economy in the world. We have a common cause to promote growth, to promote competitiveness through regional collaboration and the reduction of trade and regulatory barriers. And Mr. Speaker, that could not be more relevant today. I've had the honor of serving as Saskatchewan's representative, and I'm looking forward to the 2025 annual summit in Bellevue, Washington. Penwar has and will continue to make significant contributions to the strong and enduring partnership of our two great nations. And I would ask all members of this Assembly to join me in welcoming these very distinguished guests to the Legislature here today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize member from Regina, South Albert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To you and through you, on behalf of the official opposition, it's my pleasure to join with the minister opposite and welcome Mr. Morrison and forgive me, I only got the first name Scott to the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan. The work that we do as part of Penwar and the work that Penwar does overall is so valuable, and more now than ever, the importance of bilateral collaboration, of strengthening those relationships, strengthening those economic ties, doing what we can to reduce uncertainty, reduce trade barriers, and build that collaboration, that cooperation, that understanding that is so critical, not just to the economy of Saskatchewan, but the economy of the 10 other members that the minister spoke of. So on behalf of the official opposition, hope you enjoy a beautiful, albeit a little bit rainy day here in Saskatchewan, and we look forward to the conference this summer, and thank you for all of your work and your service to this important organization.
You're here.
I recognize the member from Kenora-Pelly.
Mr. Speaker, to you and through you, up in your gallery, I'd like to introduce to you the former MP for Yorkton-Melville, Gary Breitkreutz. Gary was first elected in 1993 in the newly formed Yorkton-Melville riding and had served there till 2015. Gary had been known to be the most outspoken member of the House of Commons on his opposition to the Canadian Gun Registry. Hear, hear. He still resides in the riding and has been a real help for me. So I invite all members to welcome Gary to his Legislative Assembly. Hear, hear.
I recognize the member from Regina Mount Royal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the official opposition, it's an honour to join with the member to welcome Gary Breitkreitz to his assembly, to thank him for his service as a member of Parliament and his service to this province. Mr. Speaker, and I ask all members to join with me in welcoming Gary Breitkreitz to the Saskatchewan Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, while on my feet, I'd like to also welcome the esteemed Fred Bradshaw, MLA for Carrot River for many years. He's got his rider's tie on back there, Mr. Speaker. He looks younger these days than when he served in here. He's still making great brownies and butter tarts, Mr. Speaker. He sent me a message a few weeks back, Mr. Speaker. I know we don't like to get into text messages too much in this assembly, but the picture was of a bunch of fish that had been caught, Mr. Speaker, but there was still no proof that he had caught any of them, Mr. Speaker, and we're still looking for confirmation on that. I ask all members to welcome Fred Bradshaw to his assembly.
I recognize the Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To you and through you, it gives me great pleasure to introduce 34 grade 12 students from AE Peacock Collegiate in Moose Jaw, who are accompanied here by their teacher, Carrie Kiefer. Mr. Speaker, Ms. Kiefer regularly brings her classes to this assembly and to watch question period, and they are always very well prepared. It is a highlight of my week to be able to meet with them, and I look forward to doing that today and very much look forward to answering their questions. So if all the members of the assembly could please join me in welcoming these students from AE Peacock Collegiate in Moose Jaw.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon Chief, Mr. Wassels.
Here, here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To you and through you, I'm very pleased to introduce to the Legislative Assembly a good friend and good citizen of Saskatoon, Doug Fast. He's over on the other side keeping track of us. And Doug and I first met when I was teaching his daughter, and I think he just wasn't sure that I could look after her when we went on camping trips. So we bonded over around the campfire, making sure everyone stayed. Don't touch the mic. Make sure that everyone stayed in their tents. And from that introduction, he's become a great friend. He and his wife Gail and the whole family are good friends of my wife Valerie and I. Doug, I knew he worked on the railway. I knew he was a big union guy. And driving down this morning, I got the details on that, you know, that he started as a brakeman in '79. He wants us to know that there are no brakemen anymore. There are just trained persons on the trains, and worked his way up from that to be a locomotive engineer when he retired in 2015. Big union guy, TCRC. If you don't know, as I didn't know just a couple of hours ago, Teamsters Canada Rail Conference. He was very involved in that as a health and safety rep, legislative rep, local chair person. Lived in Caswell Hill on the west side for the longest time, and recently in retirement, in order to have a lock-key type residence, he moved over to the east side of Saskatoon, and he unfortunately landed in the riding of Willow Grove. And I'm just so sorry that the minister from Willow Grove is not here today to acknowledge and to repeat the introduction. But on behalf of myself, my family, please welcome Doug Fast to his Legislative Assembly.
Here, here.
I recognize a member from White City Capel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To you and through you, seated behind me in the East Gallery here, we have 47 students from Emerald Ridge Elementary School in White City, accompanied by their teachers, Mr. Longstaff, Mrs. Sullivan, and Mrs. Beck. And Mr. Speaker, as I almost look at them, because I can't quite see them, but I know they're there, as I look at this great group of students, one word comes to mind, and that is potential. There is so much potential sitting in both of these galleries right now. We have future doctors, teachers, nurses, engineers, trade workers, small business owners, farmers, ranchers, and even some lawyers, I would dare say. So much potential. Truly amazing, and I look forward to getting together with these guys after question period for some good questions and, of course, some ice cream. And I'd ask all members to join me in welcoming these students from Emerald Ridge Elementary School in White City. Thank you.
And I haven't met them yet, but I'm hearing that there's a homeschool group from Kinistino here. Is that true? There they are. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you after question period this morning. I think Melfort won the lottery when we inherited Kinistino from Batoche, and appreciate having you as part of our constituency, and welcome to your Legislative Assembly this morning. Hope you enjoy the proceedings and look forward to the visit afterwards. Presenting petitions, I recognize the member from Cumberland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to rise today to present a petition to the Government of Saskatchewan calling for the recognition of the Timber Bay Residential School as a provincially run residential school, release the school records, a formal apology, and compensation to the survivors. The undersigned residents of Canada wish to bring the attention the following: that survivors of the Timber Bay Residential School have been denied the Indian residential school settlements that other sites received on the basis that the school was run by the province of Saskatchewan rather than operated by the federal government, and that the Timber Bay Residential School is the only residential school in Canada with an open RCMP investigation surrounding historical crimes. I'll read the prayer. We, in the prayer that reads as follows, respectfully request that the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan call on the Government of Saskatchewan to recognize the Timber Bay School as a provincially run residential school, release the school records to the survivors, offer the students of this school a formal apology, and compensate the survivors. The signatories of this petition reside in Orange. I do so present.
I recognize the member from Athabasca.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to present a petition to the Government of Saskatchewan calling for duty to consult legislation. We, the undersigned residents of the province of Saskatchewan, wish to bring to your attention the following. Saskatchewan needs legislation to ensure the provincial duty to consult is fulfilled and carried out in the honour of the Crown. The Sask Party government has voted against the duty to consult legislation. The Sask Party government did not follow its own guidelines on consulting with inherited treaty right holders while drafting the current duty to consult policy. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, Call to Action number 47, has called all levels of government, including the provincial governments, to reform laws, policies, and strategies that rely on outdated and backwards principle of sovereignty for the Indigenous peoples and lands. That I will read the prayer. We in prayer reads as follows: respectfully request the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan to call on the Government of Saskatchewan to ensure duty consult a law by enacting meaningful duty consult legislation. The undersigned signatories reside in Yellow Quill. I do so present.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon Chief, Mr. Wasis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my privilege to present a petition to the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan calling for mandatory intimate partner violence education. We, the undersigned residents in the province of Saskatchewan, wish to bring the attention of the following. Saskatchewan has the highest rate of per capita intimate partner violence, IPV, also known as domestic violence in Canada. The economic impact of IPV can be over $7 billion a year. Large portion of tangible IPV costs are paid for by the government for items like criminal and civil justice and healthcare. Annual estimated losses to employers can be $77 million over Canada. Workplace orientation would include all genders from all walks of life in all areas of the province. Employers and employees need to know the signs of IPV and where to call for help. Education is the key to changing the rates of IPV. And I read the prayer. respectfully request the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan to call upon the Government of Saskatchewan to immediately mandate education on intimate partner violence, that it be included in the orientation process for all new employees across all workplaces in the province. The signatories of this petition reside in Saskatoon. I do here submit.
Hear, hear.
Reading and receiving petitions. Statements by members. I recognize the member from Moose Jaw, Waccamaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In April, Moose Jaw hosted provincials for the sport of judo. Congratulations to all the athletes from across the province who came to compete. 2 judo clubs from Moose Jaw sent athletes, Control Jiu-Jitsu and the Moose Jaw Kosikkan Club. Athletes from both clubs had a great showing. They had fun, were competitive, and improved their skills. Congratulations to the Moose Jaw Kosikkan Club, who defended their provincial club title. The Kosikkan Club is home to 4 of the 6 nationally ranked judo athletes in Saskatchewan. Avery Gibney is a member of this club. She is 19 years old and has her second-degree black belt. Avery is currently ranked 7th in her category in Canada. Avery has a great role model in her mother, Destiny Deal, who also has her second-degree black belt. Destiny placed 5th in the 2024 World Veterans Championship. Destiny is fulfilling her passion to promote and improve the status of women's judo in Saskatchewan. She is a high-performance coach with the Kosikkan Club and has coached internationally with Team Canada. The lessons of judo, adaptability, discipline, and courage empower these athletes to succeed in life. Please join me in celebrating all judo athletes, coaches, and organizers in this province.
I recognize a member from Regina Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, I rose in this Assembly a little over a week ago to send our best wishes to the Regina Pat Canadians as they headed off to compete in the TELUS Cup, Hockey Canada's U18 National Championship. And today I rise to celebrate and welcome home the Pat Seas as national champions. They defeated the Chevalier de Lévis 3-2 in overtime in the final. As I've shared, this Pat Seas squad is a remarkable team, led on the bench by Coach Ryan Hodgins, on the ice by Coach Logan Mayle, and by Maddox Schultz, a phenom, a generational talent. Maddox rifled home the OT tournament winner, and he lit up and led the tourney in scoring with 20 points as an underage player and the youngest player at 15 in the U18 National Championship. He was rightly named tournament MVP. Eli Johnson led the way on defense and was named top defense. Taylor Tabashnik was rock solid between the pipes with a .951 save percentage and went undefeated. The Pat Seas team is stacked from top to bottom with talent and grit. They are champions and they've become legends, winning the national championship a record 5 times now for the Pat Seas. I ask all members of this Assembly to join with me to celebrate the Regina Pat Canadians as national champions, the players, the coaches, the proud parents, and all that have contributed to the success of this team and these players. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Batard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm thrilled to announce the completion of the Natelzatu Elementary School. This 5,548 square meter school located next to Dene High School is designed to accommodate approximately 475 students from pre-kindergarten to grade 6. Its architecture, developed with community input, beautifully celebrates Indigenous culture and the natural beauty of the area. This facility provides students with a safe and positive space to learn and grow. Northern Lights School Division Board Chair Joey McCallum expressed pride in the project, highlighting the benefits of the modern facility with its enhanced cultural and learning spaces. Mr. Speaker, since 2008, the Government of Saskatchewan has committed approximately $2.8 billion towards school infrastructure projects, including 71 new schools and 31 major renovation projects. This new school demonstrates our government's unwavering commitment to investing in education and stands as a shining example of what can be achieved through collaboration and shared vision. I want to thank the Northern Lights School Division and local community partners for helping make this happen. The completion of the new school in La Loche is a momentous occasion for students, families, and the entire community. Together, we are building a brighter future for our children and our communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Regina Walsh Acres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On October 8th, 2024, the third edition of the State of Canada's Birds Report was released. It is built from 50 years of bird monitoring data and seeks to answer the question, how are Canada's birds doing? There are a few key takeaways from the report. 1, conservation works. Waterfowl species like ducks and geese have increased by 24% thanks to concerted efforts. However, these gains are poised to be erased by the government's new agricultural water stewardship policy, which will see many wetlands in the province drained. The other key takeaway is that grassland birds are in crisis. These are our prairie birds, the birds we share this land with. Western meadowlarks, greater sage grouse, burrowing owls. This group of birds have declined by 67%. That means if you went for a drive in 1970 and found 100 meadowlarks, today on that same drive you would find only 33. In 1873, the chestnut-colored longspur was described as the most abundant grassland songbird in Saskatchewan. It is a beautiful sparrow-sized bird with a magical call found only on native prairie grasslands. Its population has declined by 95% and is now listed as an endangered species. These birds are disappearing before our eyes. What is this government doing to ensure the soundtrack of the prairies doesn't fade to a deafening silence? Thank you.
Recognize the member from White City, Capel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, April 28th, I had the privilege of going to the Tim Hortons in Balgonie to help decorate Smile Cookies. The first ever Smile Cookie campaign took place in 1996 and raised funds to support Hamilton's Children's Hospital. Since then, the annual Smile Cookie campaign has raised more than $130 million for charities and community groups. The Smile Cookie campaign runs from April 28th to Sunday, May 4th. 100% of the proceeds are donated to local charities that are selected through an application process and chosen by the restaurant owners. I would encourage all members to buy some Smile Cookies that help great charities and community groups throughout our province. This year, the cookies we decorate in Balgonie and Emerald Park are going to support the Edenwald Early Years and Youth Centre, an incredible asset in the community of Edenwald, not to mention the great constituency of White City Capel. This year, they believe they will raise over $20,000 for the centre. I'd like to thank Tim Hortons and the many workers and the volunteers and the rookie cookie decorators for a job well done to put a smile on so many faces. I must also mention, with the encouragement from the member from Moosomin-Momart, who I will also add in as the deputy whip, so I will listen to him, that currently Moosomin-Momart is in first place as far as cookies sold. So I would ask all members to help White City Capel to give Moosomin-Momart a run for their money and buy more cookies, because after all, we are close to the city, so it's you'll save gas. Please join me in congratulating our entire province for their support of this great initiative. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise to recognize May as Sexual Violence Prevention Month. Sexual violence is a serious and pervasive issue in Saskatchewan. Our province has the second highest rate of gender-based violence. Our province has the highest rate of gender-based violence and interpersonal violence in Canada. It rates more than double the national average. We have the second highest rate of sexual violence in the country and the third highest rate of human trafficking. These alarming statistics underscore the urgent need for action. Age-appropriate sexual assault and abuse prevention education is critical to preventing, identifying, and reporting sexual violence. By fostering awareness and equipping individuals with knowledge, we can work toward meaningful change and reduce these devastating numbers. I stand with survivors and support the imperative work of organizations like Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan, who provide healing, education, and advocacy. Ending sexual violence starts with honoring survivors' strength and courage. Everyone in Saskatchewan deserves to live free from violence. This month is a vital opportunity to listen to survivors, learn from their experiences, and commit to action today and every day. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Prince Albert Carleton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Saskatchewan demonstrated remarkable economic growth in 2024, achieving the second highest growth rate in Canada. Our province's growth rate has more than double the national average, thus highlighting Saskatchewan's strong economic performance. Statistics Canada reports Saskatchewan's real GDP growth rose by 3.4%, significantly surpassing the national average of only 1.6%. Mr. Speaker, this growth was largely driven by a substantial 13.2% increase in the construction industry. In March 2025, our job growth saw significant gains, with an increase of 19,800 new jobs, bringing the total number of employed people in Saskatchewan to 606,300. Saskatchewan had the third lowest unemployment rate amongst the provinces at 4.9%, well below the national average of 6.7%. This government is committed to maintaining this momentum and creating an environment that encourages investment and job creation in this province. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, just a quick statement before question period and later on 75-minute debate. Just a quick reminder. We're all... Thank you for that. We all have privilege in this assembly to debate issues freely. In doing so, let me ask us all to remember that we shouldn't be using provocative and inflammatory language and make a conscious effort to refrain from intemperate and personal attacks. In general, I believe that we should attempt to afford the general public, our staff, and the government leaders, other government leaders, the same courtesies we extend to ourselves here in this chamber of not imputing bad motives or motives different than those acknowledged by a member in this chamber. So thank you very much, and I look forward to question period. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a proud Canadian, and Canada will never be the 51st state. Saskatchewan is an incredibly important part of this country, and Mr. Speaker, that should never change. Today I say clearly to those who seek to divide and break our country that they're wrong. And I tell those who are in positions of power, who are stoking the flames of separatism, that they should be ashamed of themselves. With all of that in mind, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier I ask this: will he stand in this House today and condemn all of those who are using their positions of influence to break up this beautiful country?
I recognize the Premier.
I would say all of the suggestions, conversation around separation on the floor of this assembly is coming from the members opposite, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly. Right.
Mr. Speaker, there is this straw man argument really that is being put forward, Mr. Speaker, that it's either the status quo or separation. Well, the government of Saskatchewan is not interested in separation, and the government of Saskatchewan certainly isn't interested in the status quo either, Mr. Speaker. Status quo where our province is being treated unfairly by a federal government for close to a decade now, supported every step of the way by the NDP, Mr. Speaker, and what we saw in this most recent federal election was 65% of Saskatchewan people didn't vote for that status quo either, Mr. Speaker. But it is not a straw man argument where it's status quo or separation. We don't like either of those. We think there is an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, and we truly believe and always have believed there is a right to the founding principles of this party, that there is an opportunity for Saskatchewan to continue to grow and prosper in its economy, to grow its population, grow our communities, reinvest back into those communities, all within a strong, united nation of Canada.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I do not support the status quo, but I cannot support so-called leaders who can't find the courage to condemn those who are trying to break up our country. Mr. Speaker, the Premier can't do it. He'd rather play politics and pander to his base, pander to separatist sentiments. Mr. Speaker, that is shameful. And it's shameful that Danielle Smith's friends in Alberta are currently gathering signatures on a referendum to break up our country. Mr. Speaker, that is wrong, it's serious, and it's something that should be shot down clearly and immediately. It's bad for jobs, it's bad for investment, and it is bad for the future. Will the Premier tell the people of this province today clearly, will he clearly tell people in this province that he will never initiate a vote on Saskatchewan leaving Canada?
I recognize the Premier.
Plebiscites, they're there for people to have a voice. Mr. Speaker, I think what the Leader of the opposition may be referring to is Alberta people are gathering signatures, Mr. Speaker, to have their voice heard. I don't know what that number is or who is even doing it, but I can assure you that it's not the government of Alberta doing it, nor is it the government of anywhere when people are coming together to have their voice heard, of which the NDP is now committed to shutting down the voices that people have through legislative ability, Mr. Speaker. Through legislative ability, and in fact in Saskatchewan, our plebiscite legislation was last changed in 1996 under an NDP government, Mr. Speaker. That legislation is there for a reason, for the people of this province to have a voice, Mr. Speaker. That a voice that the NDP would take away. But again, I say, Mr. Speaker, it is the position of the government that this is not a two-option argument, Mr. Speaker. It is not the status quo or separation. Saskatchewan today, policies matter so very much. Saskatchewan today, Mr. Speaker, has over double the national rate of GDP growth in this province, due to policy decisions that have been made by this government, not just this year, but over the last decade and a half. Policies matter, Mr. Speaker, and this is a government that is always going to provide the people of Saskatchewan with a voice at election time or any time they choose.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this is not about the status quo. This is about showing some courage and some leadership to stand up against separatists. Right. Mr. Speaker, but that Premier is failing. He's failing to stand up to Danielle Smith, who wants to tear the country apart. He's also failing to address the cost of living challenge that Saskatchewan people are facing today.
That's right.
Yesterday, the Child Advocate tabled a report in this Assembly. In that report, the issue of parents who called her office because they couldn't afford, Mr. Speaker, to feed their kids, she reported that has doubled in the last year. In a province as rich as this, in the breadbasket of the world, this simply cannot stand. How does the Premier defend the fact that the Children's Advocate says that the issue of parents who can't afford to feed their kids has doubled in our province?
I recognize the Premier.
Children's Advocates recommendations or any other independent officers, Mr. Speaker. Government is always looking at those recommendations closely and most certainly and making every attempt to achieve positive outcomes with respect to those recommendations. Policies do matter, Mr. Speaker, which is why we ran the last provincial election on a policy of continuing to have Saskatchewan as the most... Yeah, we won. 13 points.
I'm going to ask both sides to listen to the questions and the answers. Mr. Premier.
Speaker, policies do matter with respect to Saskatchewan continuing to be the most affordable place in the nation to live, Mr. Speaker, and we ran on a platform of ensuring that is the case, not just this year, but years into the future. Yes, us in this province, families are experiencing cost of living pressures like they are across Canada, but we do see all too often, Mr. Speaker, facts or comments that come to the floor of this Assembly that just are incorrect, Mr. Speaker. It wasn't long ago we saw the opposition say, well, food inflation is at its highest rate in 50 years. That simply isn't true. It is across Canada, Mr. Speaker, but not in Saskatchewan. And today what we see is the economic growth rate in the province is over double the national average. In fact, it's about half, actually, of what the NDP got in the most recent federal election in this province, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I want to point out that the Minister for Trade and Export Development, when faced with the reality that people can't feed their kids in this province, says, well, we won. Mr. Speaker, he needs to understand that people in this province have the highest level of economic anxiety in the country. And the Children's Advocate is raising the alarm about parents who cannot afford to feed their kids. Yet they stand up day after day and congratulate themselves and tell us everything is just fine. Mr. Speaker, the reality is they have no plan to offer any cost of living relief, and they block affordability measures time after time. Right. Does the Premier acknowledge that we have a problem? And what exactly is he going to do to ensure that next year no parent in this province has to reach out for help because they can't feed their children?
I recognize the Premier.
Recent budget, again, pardon me, Mr. Speaker, the most recent balanced budget that was introduced and passed on the floor of this Assembly, Mr. Speaker, had many cost of living initiatives in it, Mr. Speaker, initiatives that the Saskatchewan Party had campaigned on in the most recent election, and the Saskatchewan Party government delivered on in this budget, Mr. Speaker, which is unlike other NDP governments across the nation that backtracked on their campaign promises to the people that elected them, Mr. Speaker, in the name of President Trump's tariffs, Mr. Speaker. But what we saw in this last budget was tax incentives, Mr. Speaker, that are not only going to help families, they're going to help first-time home buyers, they're going to help students, they're going to help seniors, Mr. Speaker. There are tax incentives in this particular balanced budget, Mr. Speaker, that are going to benefit each and every person in the province of Saskatchewan. What we're seeing today, if I can come back to the fact that policies matter, Mr. Speaker, when we look at the rise in inflationary pressures that families are feeling, policies do matter. Policies that have and decisions have been made at the federal level, endorsed by and voted for by the NDP every step of the way the last 4 years, Mr. Speaker. Those policies are causing inflationary pressures across the nation, Mr. Speaker. Thankfully, Saskatchewan is lower than the national average, and in economic growth, we're double the national average, Mr. Speaker, and our growth rate is half the entirety of the NDP's support in this province in the last federal election.
I recognize the member from Regina Rochdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely, policies matter, but what matters more is kindness. Mr. Speaker, there's no excuse for children going hungry. Saskatchewan, yes, it is a rich province, and we have an abundance of wealth and talented people, and no one should have to struggle to put food on the table for the children.
You're here.
But under the Sask Party's watch, the issue of parents calling this Children's Advocate for help has doubled. This is shameful. It's sad, and above all, it's just simply heartbreaking. What does the minister say to those mums and dads and grandmas and grandpas all over our province who don't know if they'll be able to afford groceries or rent at the end of the month?
You're here. You're here. I recognize the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize the inflationary pressures and the problems that those cause for families in Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. That's why we made affordability one of the forefront measures in the most recent budget, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the only balanced budget in the country, Mr. Speaker. The Premier talked about some of these in the previous answer, Mr. Speaker. One of the standout parts of the budget, I believe, is the changes to income tax. There's no better way to make life more affordable for people than letting them keep more of their own money, Mr. Speaker. As far as the lower income people, Mr. Speaker, since we've been given the privilege of forming government in 2007, Mr. Speaker, we've dropped many low-income people off the tax rolls that were previously paying income tax. When all the changes in the budget are implemented, Mr. Speaker, this year, 166,000 less people will be paying income tax in Saskatchewan than when we formed government in 2007.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Regina Rochdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think some of those families can wait until that all happens. I'll take the word of the Independent Children's Advocate every day of the week. Here's what she said in her report. There is no question that the failure to meet children and youth's basic needs have compromised their well-being and fundamental human rights to live to their full potential. How can the Sask Party, after almost 2 years, 2 decades in power, defend this record of failing our children?
I recognize the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, again, we absolutely recognize inflationary pressures and the impact they have on all the citizens of Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. That's why a number of measures, I talked about income tax, but a number of measures we've taken, Mr. Speaker, for a long time now. It's been no carbon tax charged on home heating, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and most recently, the only carbon tax-free jurisdiction in the country, Mr. Speaker. That lets people keep more of their own money in their own pockets, Mr. Speaker. We think that's important because people know best what to do with their own money, Mr. Speaker. So many of these inflationary pressures, when you talk about policies matter, they absolutely do, Mr. Speaker. Policies of the federal government have driven so many of these inflationary pressures, Mr. Speaker. Those pressures, those policies, which were derived from the federal government and supported by the NDP every step of the way.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon, Churchill-Wildwood.
Mr. Speaker, Vladimir Putin's illegal war rages on. Yesterday alone, Russia conducted more than 100 drone strikes on innocent Ukrainians. Since the war began, almost 10,000 displaced Ukrainians have come here to Saskatchewan to seek shelter from this horrible war. And I would agree with the members opposite that policies do matter. With that in mind, I regret to inform this House that effective today, this government's policy was to cut funding to critical services provided to displaced Ukrainians. Mr. Speaker, it is cold and it is callous. Why would the government cut funding for victims of war who fled to Saskatchewan for safety?
I recognize the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, this government has cut no support for the Ukrainian refugees. Mr. Speaker, this government has a track record of incredible support for the Ukrainian refugees. Mr. Speaker, any of the cuts the member opposite referring to must be federal, Mr. Speaker, but again, we stand on our record. We have given incredible support for our friends in Ukraine and the refugees that are welcome guests in Saskatchewan.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon, Churchill-Wildwood.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit surprised. This government cut funding to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress's settlement support program. 6 staff members of UCC were laid off. The Premier claims to stand with Ukraine, but his actions indicate he's doing anything but that. In March, the Premier committed to opening Saskatchewan for more Ukrainian refugees should they continue to come from this illegal Russian invasion. But today, that funding provided to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, which provides unique support and settlement services, has been cut. Can the government explain where these displaced Ukrainian people living in Saskatchewan are supposed to turn for assistance now?
I recognize the Minister of Finance.
My goodness, Mr. Speaker, why didn't the member indicate that in the first question, Mr. Speaker? What he's talking about is ridiculous. This government has put immense supports in for our friends from Ukraine who have been affected by this tragic war, Mr. Speaker, the refugees here, the cuts, as he calls them, that it was a program in place, Mr. Speaker, because there was an influx of Ukrainian refugees, Mr. Speaker. That has dwindled in recent days because of changes by the federal government, Mr. Speaker. All those supports that our friends from Ukraine need will be in place. We're happy to help. We'll continue to help, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Saskatoon, Churchill-Wildwood.
Mr. Speaker, it gets even worse. When there is a death of a displaced Ukrainian person living here in Saskatchewan, The UCC works around the clock to notify the next of kin and provide them and their deceased loved ones with their belongings and ashes. Mr. Speaker, I know this because I had an employee, a Ukrainian employee that got cancer, and the UCC helped her and her family through an absolutely impossible time when she was critically ill. This funding cut is horrific on so many levels, Mr. Speaker. Will the SAS party immediately reverse these cuts today and actually stand with the people of Ukraine?
I recognize the Minister of Parks, Culture and Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2024-25, our province invested nearly $13 million in settlement supports. This funding is provided through settlement agencies located across the province, including direct funding to the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress. Other supports we've had the privilege of providing include partnering with Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Saskatchewan and providing $350,000 in funding to support the successful resettlement of Ukrainian refugees in our province, $100,000 to support humanitarian efforts in Ukraine, amendments to allow for health coverage for Ukrainian refugees. Displaced Ukrainians can apply for Saskatchewan income support programs or the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability program, expanded the child basic benefit to eligible Ukrainian families, and made changes to allow Ukrainian refugees to exchange their passenger vehicle license for a Saskatchewan driver's license. We have done much to support the Ukrainian families who have unfortunately made their way to Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Regina South Alberta.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the minister detailing last year's support in the budget. But right now, today, let's talk about another group of people being failed by this government. Post-secondary students, our future leaders. Students already report massive amounts of financial insecurity, and yesterday we learned that the SAS party funding cuts have led to a massive tuition increase at the University of Regina. Can the minister explain why he's choosing to punish Saskatchewan students already drowning in debt?
I recognize the Minister of Energy and Resources.
As we all know, universities are autonomous institutions and set their own tuition and fee rates, which reflect their costs of delivering sustainable quality programs. Saskatchewan's domestic graduates and international student tuition rates remain among the lowest in the country, and as part of the 25-26 budget, a permanent increase of $12 million, adding a one-time increase of $6 million to help post-secondary institutions manage increasing costs of support and financial stability. But even more than that, Mr. Speaker, is our government extended the multi-year funding agreement for an additional year, and in that agreement, the MOU stipulates tuition increases are capped at 4% maximum per academic year. To ensure we are helping our post-secondary students, we continue to invest in financial supports to empower students to participate in and complete post-secondary education. And this year, our government is providing more than $113.4 million to direct supports.
I recognize the member from Regina South Alberta.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I guess everything's fine then, and the government is just happy to pass the buck to universities and pass the buck to students who, again, are drowning under a mountain of debt. These are students. This is our future workforce, Mr. Speaker. We have so much opportunity here in Saskatchewan, but we have a government that isn't supporting their education and is actively cutting funding to their schools. Tuition hikes at the U of R, tuition hikes at the U of S, staffing cuts at Sask Poly. Right. When will this government stop putting the hammer to post-secondary students, post-secondary institutions, something that is so important to the future of Saskatchewan?
I recognize the Minister of Energy and Resources.
Mr. Speaker, this year's budget will provide $577 million in operating funding to support our post-secondary education institutions. And as I mentioned, as part of that budget, a permanent increase of $12 million, that's a 2.2% increase, adding a one-time increase of $6 million to help post-secondary institutions manage increasing costs. Part of the MOU and the agreement that was put in place stipulates tuition increases are capped at 4% max per academic year. And the MOU helps support long-term financial sustainability and ensured access to quality post-secondary education remains affordable to students. Since 2008-9, our government has invested $880.65 million in infrastructure funding at post-secondary institutions, and the opposition never once mentioned post-secondary institution funding in their platform.
I recognize the member from Cumberland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, healthcare in northern Saskatchewan is an absolute disaster under that minister. Instead of staffing up and training local First Nations and Métis people to work in healthcare, the Sask Party is sending webcams and travel nurses. It is a slap in the face to the patients and the people of northern Saskatchewan. When will the Saskatchewan Party make sure that the people in northern Saskatchewan can get the healthcare that they need when and where they need it?
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's be very clear about what was proposed by the opposition this week in this legislature. The opposition proposed yesterday to ban virtual care for rural and northern communities, Mr. Speaker. Let's be very clear about it.
I would ask for order in the chamber. Please, Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was proposed by the opposition to ban virtual care for rural and northern communities, Mr. Speaker. That is something we are not going to do. We are not going to end the virtual physician program. We are not going to limit options for frontline healthcare workers and patients in this province, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to work to provide better access to healthcare in this province for people regardless of where they live.
I recognize the member from Cumberland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Maybe if that minister asked the Northerners how their hospitals are running rather than how the walleye are running, he would understand the issues in Northern Saskatchewan health system. Mr. Speaker, that minister found his feet to talk about virtual care. That might work in the south, but it sure as heck doesn't work in the north. How on earth does this Sask Party expect northern people to connect into a doctor's appointment for Zoom when they can't even get access to reliable internet?
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting. Since the NDP's motion yesterday, myself and my colleagues have heard from leaders across the province about not ending virtual care in this province as the opposition proposed on the floor of this assembly yesterday, Mr. Speaker. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? We're not going to do that, Mr. Speaker. So here we have an opposition. Here we have an opposition suggesting what to do that is opposite to what physician leaders in the Saskatchewan Health Authority say, compared to what opposite to what municipal leaders and health care leaders in this province want to, so they can provide better access, Mr. Speaker. We're not going to do what the opposition wants to do. Thank you.
Ministerial statements. Introduction of bills. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Orders of the day.
75-minute debate. Motion to be moved by Ms. Young.
I recognize the member from Regina, South Alberta.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to be on my feet for what is my favorite part of every week, the 75-minute debate. And what a topic we have before us here, Mr. Speaker. But before I dive into the meat of this motion, I thought I would get a few things out of the way. Now, Mr. Speaker, we hear time and time and time again from members opposite some things that are inconsistent with the public record and indeed the record in this House. So I want to make sure the members opposite The member from PA Carleton, plug in that earpiece, listen up so that no member opposite is in danger of misleading the House by misspeaking on something that has already been clarified. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot to be frustrated with in this country. We're going to talk about a lot of it later, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-69, not something supported by either party in this House. The carbon tax, consumer or industrial, also not supported by any party in this House. The oil and gas cap, the clean electricity regulations, not supported by any party in this House. And lest I forget the methane cap as well, also something not supported by either party in this House. The tariffs on canola, not supported by either party in this House. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the ills that impact this province, there's actually a great deal of unity on decisions that have been unilaterally implemented by the last federal government on this province. So there is great cause for dissatisfaction, and I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, and thankful to members on both sides that I was able to speak to that on the floor, make sure once again that it's on the record so members opposite aren't confused and potentially misspeak about the views and values of positions of the official opposition.
As I was taking my position at the chair, the term mislead was used and now misspoke. That is not appropriate language to be using. It is not the intent of anybody in this chamber to mislead. So please refrain from using those words, please.
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. I hear you loud and clear. I hate for anybody accidentally to do anything ever in this House, because all is not calm on the Western Front. I think that much is clear, Mr. Speaker. But you know, I'm an adopted Westerner, Mr. Speaker, as members opposite like to remind me. I didn't have the privilege of being born in Western Canada, Mr. Speaker. I was born out east, moved here after meeting a very, very handsome, kind, wonderful, hardworking man from Saskatchewan, and chose to make this my home, have my children here, start a business, raise my family, and serve this province. And I'm grateful for that, Mr. Speaker, and I'm grateful for everything that this province provides, not just for those of us who live here, but to this country. But Mr. Speaker, I do feel that sense of alienation from Ottawa, which is incidentally my hometown. I do feel it, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that. But for all of the frustrations that I have felt as a Western Canadian, it doesn't make me hate my country, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't make me hate my fellow countrymen. It doesn't make me want to break up or destroy this beautiful project, this beautiful country that we have here, Canada. And yet we have actors right now who are trying to do that, Mr. Speaker. President Trump, south of the border, has been quite clear and quite vocal in his interest in destroying the Canada as we know it, Mr. Speaker. And we've had some frustrations on this side of the House. We've been quite clear with what we have seen as a weak answer from members opposite from this Premier when it's come to facing those threats. We started with the Premier talking about taking a Team North America approach. Yes, the United States is our biggest trading partner, but Mr. Speaker, there can be no Team North America approach with a president who wants us to become a state. We're a sovereign nation. There can be no Team North America approach. This government, we felt, has been carrying water for President Trump, and government who said we can't take him seriously. We should take him seriously, but we can't take him literally, Mr. Speaker, and yet time and time again we see the president south of the border being quite clear in his language, his unique language and way of speaking, that his intent is to make Canada the 51st state in some sick, twisted kind of 21st century manifest destiny, spheres of influence. And meanwhile, we've seen this premier and this government go arm in arm with Preston Manning, former leader in this country. And you know, Preston Manning, in speaking about this country recently, I'll quote from the National Post 2 days ago, Mr. Speaker. He wrote, and I'll quote, "Large numbers of Westerners simply will not stand for another 4 years of Liberal government, no matter who leads it," end quote. He goes on that if Carney were to emerge victorious from Monday's election, quote, "he would then be identified in the history books tragically and needlessly as the last Prime Minister of a united Canada," end quote. This is who the Premier chose to spend time speaking at his conference. And I remember the Manning Centre conferences, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they actually used to be about religious pluralism. They were really interesting, the Manning Centre back in the day, but now it has really taken a turn to what I would suggest is an ugly, divisive rhetoric focused on breaking up Canada. Because again, Mr. Speaker, I have not liked every government or every Prime Minister who has served this country. But I respect my country and I respect my fellow countrymen, and I'm not interested, Mr. Speaker, we're not interested in breaking it up. And now to the west of us, we see Danielle Smith, Premier Smith, saber rattling. It's far from subtle, Mr. Speaker, about Western separatism and holding a referendum. Her government is actually currently introducing legislation to make it easier for citizens in that province to come forward and have a referendum focused on seceding from Canada. And Mr. Speaker, again, have frustrations with your neighbors. That doesn't mean you break up the country. And let's just take a brief visit to some of the things that Premier Smith has done or focused on in her term in office, because I do think it's relevant, Mr. Speaker, because we've seen this Premier follow Premier Smith time and time again. We've seen it with the Alberta Revenue Agency, and here we have the Saskatchewan Revenue Agency still being pursued by this government in this budget. We saw it with the Alberta Sheriffs, now modeled with the Saskatchewan Marshals Force. We saw it with the Alberta Sovereignty Act and the Saskatchewan First Act. I suppose we also saw it almost in the inverse here with Bill 137, punching down at vulnerable trans children in Saskatchewan, now being modeled by Premier Smith in Alberta. There's a lot of commonalities between these two leaders in Premier Moe and Premier Smith. The same Premier Smith, Mr. Speaker, who also said that Ukraine was to blame for the invasion by Russia. She thought they deserved it. They were asking for it. This is on the record, Mr. Speaker. She's been quite clear. This is the same Premier who blamed cancer patients for getting cancer, who interfered in a criminal investigation, falsely claimed to have Indigenous heritage. I don't really want to get into the whole Lake of Fire debacle, but that was something. She said she wasn't going to cross the floor, then she crossed the floor. She spent $80 million on children's painkillers that came too late and couldn't be sold. Talked about feeding tainted meat to the homeless, and spreads World Economic Forum conspiracy theories, and you know, is in lockstep with folks like Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem, her heroes. So this is a Premier, Mr. Speaker, with whom we would have a lot of disagreement, and this is a Premier, Danielle Smith, who our Premier here in Saskatchewan has followed. And you know, recently this week, Mr. Speaker, Premier Moe has talked about the guiding principles of the Saskatchewan Party, the founding principles of this party. I'd submit, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that this party as it exists today is very, very different from those founding principles outlined in that document, Mr. Speaker. This is a government that has spent their political capital and their legislative agenda on some wild things, Mr. Speaker. Bill 137, to start with. This is a premier who on the last election night chose to speak not to his province as a whole, but to the Buffalo Party voters. The same Buffalo Party, which in Alberta, just next door, has rebranded themselves as the Republican Party. The same Buffalo Party that just this year held a separatist conference here in Regina. This is a Saskatchewan Party government that spent taxpayer dollars funding a tour by the late MLA Lyle Stewart and Alan Kirpin, a known Wexiteer and separatist, former MP, former MLA, touring the province, stirring up separatist talk. This is a premier who couldn't say no to folks who were concerned about chemtrails. And this is a premier who has left the door open to seceding from Canada, left the door open. It shouldn't be that hard just to say no.
Right.
An important thing for any politician to do, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is to say no. And I appreciate it's a lot harder to say no to people you disagree with than it is to say no to your friends, but I'd submit that's an important, if not necessary, skill. And this is a government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is now claiming that they're focused on what matters to Saskatchewan people, that they spent the last election campaigning on affordability. Well, frankly, Mr. Speaker, every person in this province knows what the Premier said his first priority would be coming out of the election. Every person in the province knows that that Premier did not campaign on affordability, on health care, on crime, priorities that matter to Saskatchewan people. This is what we should be focused on. We shouldn't be having to have a debate on Western separatism, on how closely we're going to be holding hands with Premier Smith, because this is not just objectionable, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is bad for the province and it's bad for the economy. And let's not forget, because I'll admit, Mr. Speaker, any opportunity I have to reread this quote into the legislature, I am going to take it. What emerged from that summer secession tour, Mr. Deputy Speaker? But drawing the line, a document defending Saskatchewan's economic autonomy, a document that was called by Alberta economist Trevor Tombe insane and completely uncredible. And now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what did former Prime Minister Harper's lead advisor Howard Anglin have to say about this, Mr. Speaker? He said it's a new low in political communications in Canada. It is doubtful that any government in the history of Confederation, federal, provincial, or municipal, has published something so badly written. He goes on. The text is not so much spoiled by errors as composed of them, and the run-on sentences meander more than the South Saskatchewan River. Mr. Speaker, this is what that government gets up to when they're left to their own devices. Separation is bad for this economy, Mr. Speaker, because there's three things that industry and investment hate: uncertainty, uncertainty, uncertainty. And what they can be sure on is that on this side of the House, we're certain about our role in a united Canada. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I am going to move that the Assembly opposes Donald Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state, and also opposes the threats of Western separation supported by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and others. Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to move this motion, and I look forward to the debate today. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Dakota Arm River.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's a privilege to be on my feet today for the 75-minute debate. It's no secret, Mr. Speaker, that prior to being elected to this seat by the great folks of Dakota Arm River, that my coaching career unfolded at hockey arenas.
sometimes in front of tiny crowds of less than 100 people, and at other times in front of thousands. Sometimes those games I coached at were in small communities in Saskatchewan, while other times they are in far-flung nations such as Kazakhstan, Estonia, or in the Czech Republic. But the very best moment of every game, Mr. Speaker, without question, the absolute best part of every game played here in Canada or abroad was the players come storming out onto the ice at the start of the game. The crowd cheers, the players do a quick hot lap around the ice, and then Canadian pride takes over. The crowd gets on their feet, the players come to a stop at the blue line, and as the players rock back and forth in anticipation for the greatest moment in sports, Mr. Speaker, I too find myself rocking back and forth. And we all we turn our face to the flag, and the music begins as O Canada blares out. I can't sing very well, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually terrible. But let me tell you, I sing the Canadian National Anthem on the bench so loud because it's the nation that my forefathers came to for freedom and opportunity. And I will never be ashamed of such an incredible flag or song. Mr. Speaker, maybe it's from coaching for so many years, I'm not sure, but I have garnered the ability to block out the white noise around me during those games. I don't hear the yelling of fans or the blaring of music. I just get myself into the zone as a coach. Now, my wife would say it's not just during the games that I can't hear the noise around me, but that's another discussion for another time. The point is, Mr. Speaker, when it comes time to perform, myself as a coach or my athletes, we find ourselves in the zone. We do not get distracted by side noise, background noise, or opponents chirping or panicking. We just block it out because of the consistent, steady game planning that we get into the zone. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that our government is in the zone. We are dialed in. Our leadership from Premier Moe through to Finance Minister and all of our cabinet ministers and colleagues, we are dialed in. Because Saskatchewan has what the world needs, Mr. Speaker: food, fuel, fertilizer, forestry, and so much more. And as such, we don't get annoyed by the U.S. making comments or by pundits suggesting that we will lose Canada or become the 51st state. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest, through our strong, steady leadership and vision, that it's Saskatchewan that's actually holding this nation together, not being torn apart as this opposition continues to suggest. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet the High Commissioner from Sri Lanka, the High Commissioner from Pakistan, and the Ambassador from Ecuador. They spent the day here at the Ledge, and I had the chance to enjoy a few meals with them, hear their stories, hear their challenges, and we encourage each other to keep being leaders. As we were enjoying some of the finest cuts of Saskatchewan beef, I asked the three of them, why have you come to Saskatchewan? Why did you land here in Regina and not other parts of Canada? And without hesitation, they said two reasons. Number one, because you have what our country needs, and number two, your province is financially stable. So, Mr. Speaker, because our government has been laser-focused on developing trade offices around the globe and fostering relationships to deliver to the world more of what they need, these markets can be enjoying what farmers in our province produce. Mr. Speaker, every day, 275 million people eat chickpea curry for breakfast in the nations of Sri Lanka and Pakistan. 275 million daily breakfasts. That's incredible news. That's an example of our government not panicking over one election cycle down south, but rather it's 18 years of consistent, steady growth of our exports to the world. But let's bring things home and give you an example of a story right here in Saskatchewan. Some of our pushbacks against UF tariff measures was to make sure that we had procurement right here from Canada, and where we could, procurement from Saskatchewan. In combination with that, one of our tariff pushbacks was to stop buying alcohol from the USA. So, Mr. Speaker, I have an incredible success story to share with you, and it covers all three of these tariff measures that we have taken. Number one, it fills the void left by stopping U.S. alcohol purchases. Number two, it brings procurement to Canada. And number three, it brings procurement here to Saskatchewan. And actually, Mr. Speaker, the fourth one that I add into it is a story of job creation here in Saskatchewan. Let me introduce to you Mr. Barry and Kathy Williams, owners of So-So Beverages right here in Saskatchewan. They own and operate establishments in Asquith and Aylesbury, and they are the creative geniuses behind Bigfoot Vodka. You've likely heard their creative advertising on the radio or seen their fantastic marketing campaigns across the province. Mr. Speaker, they purchased their natural grain spirits from the community of Unity and the farmers that are nearby, creating great paying rural jobs in their community. And they distilled the grains in the community of Asquith, again creating more rural jobs. Their sales have become monstrous. They first in their first year cracked $1 million sales. Then in their second year, $3 million in sales. And this year, Mr. Speaker, in 2025, they are projecting sales to be north of $5 million just here in Saskatchewan. They have 600 locations that they distribute to in Saskatchewan, and all those clients want product certainty. So Beverages wants local partnerships, and they've made a long-term commitment to our province. Because of things like our 1% sales tax rate, and more importantly, as Mr. Speaker, as Barry Williams told me, they love the collaboration that happens in the Saskatchewan business community. So much so, Mr. Speaker, that they have now gone national and are going to throw a lifeline to actually Manitoba and Alberta to help keep businesses alive there by getting some of their bottling done to meet the need that the growing business has to distribute across Canada. A Saskatchewan company committed to the province and throwing lifelines around the country because of their vision to grow a Saskatchewan born and raised company with strength of operations and being a rural job creation machine. If you need more proof, Mr. Speaker, of our Saskatchewan government's commitment to being a leader in the nation, look no further. I'd ask you to look no further than the inflationary, job-killing carbon tax that's crippled our nation for the better part of the last decade. Right. It was at the genesis of that NDP-supported carbon tax where the then Sask Environment Minister from Shelbrook stood up for Canada and stood up when nobody else would. He stood up with the courage of Saskatchewan. He stood up to defend the nation of Canada, and he walked out of that railroading session where the tax was announced. 30 days ago, Mr. Speaker, this nonstop, steady, sturdy, strong voice of leadership from our Saskatchewan government planted our flag once again, and we became the first province in Canada to be completely carbon tax-free. So, Mr. Speaker, there's no question where our loyalty as a government sits. We are proudly Canadian, and we will lead with great courage to assure that Saskatchewan remains the hope and opportunity for everyone around the world. Later tonight, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to get the opportunity to travel to Chicago to attend a Midwest Legislators Conference, and it will provide me with the opportunity to continue building partnerships with U.S. elected officials. Just like so many of my other ministers here and colleagues have been able to travel and shore up relationships down in the States, making sure that everyone south of us understands how tightly woven together our economies are and how damaging their tariffs could be. Our ministers have also gone abroad, solidifying existing trade partnerships and to explore new trade partnerships around the world, because this government is committed to remaining a vital part of the world economy with our food, fuel, and fertilizer, using our resources to create a strong economy that allows us to be a leader that Canada needs us to be. We have had today in the chamber the CEO for Penwar here with us today, who highlighted the fact that it was the work of our Premier and our ministers who successfully lobbied U.S. elected officials to understand how integrated our economies are and help bring successful conclusion to those needs. Right. How successful has Saskatchewan been, Mr. Speaker? Well, numbers don't lie. This morning, StatsCan released the GDP numbers for Canada, and while Canada's GDP growth is 1.6%, it was Saskatchewan with a growth rate of 3.4%. To that, Mr. Speaker, I say let the anthem ring from coast to coast to coast, and sing it loud and proud for all the world to hear. We are Saskatchewan proud. God bless Canada, our home and native land.
I recognize the member from Regina Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is my great privilege and honour to enter into this debate I think the member from South Albert did a great job of clarifying right off the start so we didn't get muddled in anything. What we agree with on both sides of the House when it comes to the economy. So I will not be distracted by the red herrings thrown by the other side trying to get us off track in this debate. Let's get back to what the motion is about. That the Assembly opposes Donald Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state and also opposes the threats of Western separation supported by Alberta Premier Daniel Smith and others. Let's get back to the question. Mr. Deputy Speaker, those who seek to divide and break up the country are absolutely wrong. It is our duty as elected officials to make things work. Governments disagree on policy issues all the time. They have throughout the great history of this province and this country, and they will continue to do so. And Mr. Speaker, quite frankly, that is sort of the spirit and intent of the Western parliamentary system, is to have that debate, is to have that disagreement. But every time somebody doesn't like an election, they can't just carve up the country and disagree. They can't just yell, I'm taking my ball home and I don't want to have any more of this whatsoever. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's really, really hard to get an audience from the Premier, and I understand why. He is a busy man, for sure. But the issues that I see here in my community, in my constituency, in Regina, houselessness, people that are in constant pain, that can't talk to the Premier about surgeries, kids that have no support, yet we see the Premier spending his time to get an audience with separatists on the weekend and with Preston Manning. That has lasting repercussions, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Yep. The decisions that we make as politicians about who is deserving of our time and when they are deserving of our time and why we go visit people, those have lasting repercussions. They have lasting repercussions. We're busy people. There's people suffering here in our province that need our attention. And yet, visiting Western separatist people, there's a perhaps better use of our time.
Yep.
What do I see, Mr. Deputy Speaker? What do I see? Across my riding and across this great province is a renewed sense of pride in Canada. And the decisions, once again, that we make as politicians as to who gets an audience with us matters. Where we place our priorities matters. Certain places where we put our priorities means it is bad for jobs, bad for investment, bad for the economy, bad for the future, and bad for trade here in Saskatchewan. Yep. And I will take no more lessons from the government saying that we here on opposition don't understand how the economy works.
Yes.
I have heard from numerous businesses, business owners and companies in my riding, how they are trying to make a go of it by creating new Canada Proud products. But that there's difficulty because investors are hesitant to invest here in the economy when we had no plan in the budget for the possible tariffs happening. That lowers consumer confidence when it comes to investing here in our country. No one wants to invest here when other provinces have a plan in place. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, but it's our job as elected officials, it's our job as a government to make people not only feel a sense of pride, but feel a sense of being at home and feel a sense that they are okay. And right now, when I speak to people in my riding, they're not feeling okay. They're not feeling okay at all. And why is that? They are not seeing a strong enough condemnation of Donald Trump by this Sask Party government. Mr. Speaker, negotiating from a position of silence and avoidance, the I'll take my ball and go home approach is not what we are called to do as politicians, is not what we are called to do as elected officials. And this politician, for one, has had it, because this government is trying to keep the extreme right in the tent at the expense of the economic health of this province and the mental health of the residents of this province who need their leaders to stand up.
Yes.
I respect all my colleagues in this House, Mr. Speaker, and I respect many of the sentiments shared by the member of Dakota Arm River. But I do have cause for great concern when we say things like not panicking over one election down south. Not panicking over one election down south. Other comments from other ministers about Chicken Little implying that the sky is falling and how that's not a good thing, we shouldn't worry. And just today in the House, the Premier said about the federal election, we don't want separation, but we don't want the status quo. Why does that worry me? Because I've been losing sleep at night for the past 2 weeks listening to Danielle Smith's rhetoric, and it's this type of we don't want separatism, but we don't want the status quo rhetoric that deeply troubles me. The Premier also said that referendums are there for people to use. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what we know for a fact is that Danielle Smith actually changed, without much notice to anybody, the way referendums work in Alberta. The way referendums now work in Alberta is that you only need 10% of the people to agree to one. You now have 120 days to get there instead of 90, and you don't need people from various parts of Alberta, from various areas, from various ridings to agree to that referendum. That was scrapped entirely. It could just be 10% of people from one area of a province. Why is that deeply concerning? Take Back Alberta founder David Parker said on Wednesday of this week that his online petition for a referendum on Alberta sovereignty had collected more than 80,000 signatures in less than 36 hours, and he expects to hit that magical 200,000 mark by the end of the week. He actually took pride in throwing it in people's faces that now he can have a referendum. Once again, Danielle Smith has said that she personally supported Alberta staying in Canada. She wouldn't stand in the way of a citizen-led referendum, but she'd be setting up a post-election panel that will give the citizens a chance to put forward potential referendum questions. She will absolutely get that panel going. Premier Smith will get on a panel after lowering what it takes to have a referendum in this province. Shame, indeed, shame. So when the Premier says we don't want separatism, but we don't want the status quo 2 days after a federal election, and then we hear referendums are there for people to use them, what I am hearing is a dangerous resemblance to the rhetoric we see coming from Danielle Smith, somebody who wants the police force, her own police force, to replace the RCMP. My father is former RCMP Veterans Committee Chair. Doesn't stand well with me. Says she won't cross the floor, but then she crosses the floor. Calls unvaccinated people the most discriminated group in her lifetime, falsely claims to have Indigenous heritage, threatens to sue the CBC for publishing her own words, says we need to fundraise for health care, called for the defunding of a bunch of public schools. This is not who people in our province want our Premier to align with. Please, Mr. Deputy Speaker, all I'm asking is for the Premier to reconsider this for the good of our entire province. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Martinsville-Blairmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to stand on my feet today. In response to the idea of becoming the 51st state, let me respond clearly without hesitation. We are not interested in becoming the 51st state, no matter who proposes it, even if it's the US president. This isn't about politics and partisanship. It's about sovereignty, identity, and pride. Canada and every province within it is built on values we hold dear: universal health care, diplomacy, and a deep respect for peace and order. We don't need to trade those values for attention, power, or proximity to a larger stage. Some may say we benefit from the influence of opportunity, but we already have it on our own terms. In Saskatchewan, we have what the world needs. Mr. Speaker, we don't measure our worth by our size or by who we stand next to. We measure it by how we treat people, how we lead with principle, and how we stand up together when someone suggests we're better off being something we're not. We're not here to be absorbed. We're here to be respected. Canada is not a side project. It is a nation, a proud one, and we intend to keep it that way. Mr. Trump, we'd like to say we'd appreciate the offer, but Canada's doing just fine as it is, thank you. We've got health care, clean air, good manners, and more canola than we know what to do with. Becoming the 51st state, thanks, but we prefer not needing to explain to Congress what poutine or poutine is. We'll keep the snow, the peace, and our own flag. And last time I checked, Mr. Speaker, we live in Saskatchewan, Canada. So why are we being asked to condemn comments from other provincial leaders, not to mention leaders from other countries? Because the real issue at hand is we should be asked that we work with our newly elected Prime Minister in making sure that he truly understands what Saskatchewan needs and comes to the table ready to build a relationship with Western Canada. You know, Western Canada, the place where the mountains touch the sky, the prairies never end, and even the moose have better views than most people. Yeah, it's just casually outdoing the rest of the world. It's no big deal. I'd like to invite Mr. Carney to the Canadian prairies. You know, the provinces Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. The ones who are often underestimated, but they're nothing short of incredible. Then there's the people. The prairie folk are known for their grit, their kindness, their honesty. In small towns and big-hearted cities, you'll find a sense of community that's hard to match. The prairies aren't flashy, and they don't need to be. They're the backbone of Canada. They're steady, strong, and stunning in their own way. Mr. Deputy Speaker, fear is a powerful tool, and some people use it when they run out of facts. Constantly warning that our province might separate only creates division and anxiety. We're stronger when we focus on the real solutions and not stoking panic. Our future shouldn't be built on fear. It should be built on unity, respect, and shared vision for progress. We are for Saskatchewan, not against it. And that just shows in how hard we work to better the services for our residents every day. What do threats really mean? Well, threats are loud. They're designed to rattle us and to provoke fear. to force reactions instead of reason. But what do threats actually mean? Well, often they are a weapon of the weak, not of strength, but of desperation. When someone threatens, it's because they've run out of dialogue, out of diplomacy, and out of facts. Threats are meant to divide, to make us second-guess our values and question our unity. But we don't move forward as a society by giving in to fear. We move forward by standing firm in what we believe, by choosing courage over panic, and by responding with calm, informed strength. Real leadership doesn't bark threats, it builds trust. Real citizens don't crumble under pressure, they rise with purpose. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I like to speak highly of this province and the great people in it. I like to speak about the positives that this province has, which is affordable cost of living, strong job opportunities, quality of life, education incentives, community and cultural pride, and not to mention an amazing government. One that sticks up for its citizens time and time again. A government who truly values what Saskatchewan has to offer, not only on the world stage, but right here at home. And you know, Mr. Speaker, it's the people. That's our true treasure. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, but I'd like to say we're in a pretty good spot when it comes to this Premier. He does not falter and stands up to Ottawa, not to mention negotiations with our trading partner down south. He has continued to educate and advocate on our behalf, like opening 11 trade offices around this world. Our Premier has proven how dedicated he is to serving the people of this province. He has proved any challenge that stands in our way, he deals with it head-on. This government will always have the interest of Saskatchewan people first and foremost. When Saskatchewan people express what they want, we listen. It's just as easy as that. And what I know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that we will not give up on Saskatchewan. We don't need to live in fear. We are Saskatchewanians, and we are Canadians, and we are proud to be so. I thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Athabasca.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise today and feel deeply privileged to take part in the 75-minute debate, Mr. Speaker. I love our province, Deputy Speaker. I love our country. I love the people in it. And you know, there's been so many discussions based on separation in this province and separation from the province of Alberta, separating, you know, and turning into the 51st state. And this has been a conversation that people have had throughout the province, and now people in the north are also having this discussion. And there's been a lot of talk about it up in that area, Deputy Speaker. In Saskatchewan, I want to, you know, as the First Nations and Métis Relations Shadow Minister, I felt deeply honored, deeply privileged to be able to be offered that position. is because I come from a long line of resilient people in my family. And something that we, I'm proud Cree Mitchell from northwestern Saskatchewan, from Beauval. Mr. Speaker, in Saskatchewan, there are 74 First Nation communities. Great people, very kind. There are 6 numbered treaties that I wish to acknowledge here this morning, Mr. Speaker. As I begin my remarks, treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. Wow. These treaties, Mr. Speaker, were negotiated and agreed upon between the First Nations and the Crown. The First Nations have continued advocating the province and the nation to honor them. This is something that there was a lot of conversation about. There is no room for any threat or discussion on Western separation without the consultation to the First Nations and Métis communities.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
I'm going to even go further with that statement, Deputy Speaker, and join my thoughts to express them from the Indigenous MLAs throughout the West that say that there's no room for any discussion on Western separation without the consent of over 70 First Nations in the province and the Métis Nation.
Yep, that's right. Hear, hear.
And I want to state firsthand again and make this, I want to make this statement that the NDP did not support any idea of Canada becoming the 51st state. This is something we talked about right from the beginning, Deputy Speaker. Now, I don't know who Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is consulting with, the strong Indigenous community of Alberta, but I can guarantee that this Premier and the government have not consulted or received consent from any First Nation leadership or any leadership from the Métis Nation.
That's right.
And I know without a doubt, Deputy Speaker, that the First Nations and Métis communities would never agree to this idea. So I challenge the government to reaffirm the Indigenous community in this province by voting in favor of the motion being brought forward, a member from Regina South.
It's an easy one.
We condemned Donald Trump and his actions as threats against Canada.
That's right.
Deputy Speaker, we have. While the Sask Party supports Donald Trump and those who donate to him, we haven't, there was a lot of debate based on the American contracts that haven't been scrapped, for example. This is something that I seen in here, and I was quite, and we also introduced a Buy Local Day bill that supports local businesses here. That was our responsibility as MLAs in this province, is to support the people of Saskatchewan, Deputy.
Hear, hear. Hear.
We want to strengthen economic ties in Canada and overseas. You know, if Donald Trump has been really pushing this 51st state on our province, and yet our Premier won't condemn that. I also wish to send a message to U.S. President Trump today in the chamber, a message that the Premier and the government won't bring up. But on this side of the Assembly, we're not afraid to speak about, Deputy Speaker. Indigenous peoples have called these lands since the time immemorial. We have survived these lands for generations, even in the midst to attempt to wipe out Indigenous people using colonial tactics. Indigenous people will not allow President Trump to dictate his way into making Canada the 51st state, Deputy Speaker. And there is no way our sovereign Indigenous nations will risk the unsteadiness and havoc that the President is bringing to the neighbours in the South. Now, when we talk about the separation, like I said, I'm proud to be from this province. It's a beautiful province. It's and I'm also very proud to be Canadian. I have friends right across this country, Deputy Speaker, people that I've worked with, people that I've had the opportunity to consult with for many years. And we had so much conversation regarding this. And you know, it seems pretty surprising that this government has not delivered Saskatchewan from any protection of the tariffs, because there's a lot of businesses that are being affected by this already. You know, and it's our responsibility to be able to support them. I want to talk about separatism. The Saskatchewan NDP, our side of the Assembly, does not support Saskatchewan or Alberta separating from Canada, Deputy Speaker. Supports the collaboration and expansion for pipelines, railroad power. One of the things that I wanted to bring up while I was here too, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that this government spoke so much about pipelines, but there hasn't been any consultation with the Indigenous community. And if they're separated, how is that going to work?
Right.
How is that going to work in this country?
It won't. Didn't think about that.
It won't work. As this discussion on Western separation began, my thoughts immediately went to the elders, because a lot of the elders in my area didn't understand what that meant.
That's right.
They stood beside a lot of the people in this province, and they fought battles together. You come up to my home community, and you see all of the veterans that fought for this province and fought for this country. Alongside a lot of family members here in the Assembly. And we talk about separating from this country. It makes no sense to me. I wondered what the old ones would be feeling during a time like this. I also thought about the young people and the future that they might have. I don't wish for the Indigenous young people to live in a life of uncertainty, because this is something that we're seeing right now, uncertainty. And it's uncertainty from this government.
That's right.
That's right.
Especially in a political climate brought forward by the U.S. President and now by the Alberta Premier. I can with 100% talk about the certainty that we as the NDP official opposition bring to the table, and that's for us to work together and make sure that the Saskatchewan residents are heard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker.
I recognize the member from Kelvington-Wadena.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have to tell you, the last 2 Thursdays, that chair has just been filled with incredible wisdom and beauty. You know, some of my colleagues have already mentioned this, but hot off the presses, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we just found out that Saskatchewan was second in real GDP growth across the nation at 3.4%. More than double the national GDP growth of 1.6%. I don't know if you know this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but Sask's real GDP reached $80.5 billion in 2024. Saskatchewan is one of the foremost leaders in sustainable food, fuel, and fertilizer. These 3 industries are key to our economic strength and growth. They are key drivers to our economy. As a resource-rich province, Saskatchewan's economy heavily relies on agriculture, mining, and energy sectors, which are often vulnerable to fluctuations in international trade policies. Recognizing this vulnerability, the provincial government has implemented several initiatives aimed at enhancing its economic resilience and mitigating the impacts of tariffs imposed by the United States. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let's talk about our economy. Saskatchewan is a province that has always prided itself on resilience and collaboration. That can be seen in many ways, those being our new all-time high population of 1,250,000 people, that we are second among the provinces with total capital investment reaching nearly $20 billion in 2024. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there were more than 70 large-scale investment projects in Saskatchewan by private companies with a potential investment commitment of $42 billion. Saskatchewan has the second lowest net debt to GDP ratio among the provinces. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we support the federal government in the use of targeted counter tariffs, but we do not support the use of export tariffs. For far too long, businesses in our province have been at the mercy of external pressure that seeks to undermine this government's progress. We've seen the detrimental effects of unilateral tariffs in trade, which highlights the need for targeted counter tariffs. And we support the federal government in deploying these measures as they protect our interests without resorting to the harmful practice of export tariffs. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Third time's the charm here. Mark Schultz, the president of the Canadian Association of Energy Contractors, said in this building and in Calgary at the CAOC luncheon, and I quote, "Everyone in the room knows it's the advocacy and diplomatic work of this Premier and this government who have kept the tariffs on the energy sector at their current level." Hear, hear, hear. One of the significant strengths of Saskatchewan lies in its rich natural resources, particularly in potash, grains, and energy production, including oil and natural gas. The provincial government has taken deliberate steps to promote these industries, making them more competitive on the global stage by investing in infrastructure improvements such as transportation and logistics. Saskatchewan has improved the efficiency of moving goods to market, reducing operational costs for producers. This solid infrastructure not only aids in the domestic market, but also positions Saskatchewan exports favorably in the face of American tariffs, allowing the province to remain competitive. One of these programs is the Low Productivity and Reactivation Oil Well Program, a Crown royalty and freehold production tax volumetric drilling incentive for low-producing, suspended, or inactive horizontal oil wells. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government listens to industry. We listen to experts in their industries. This is an example of that. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a lifetime ago, I remember throwing tongs, scrubbing shacks, and doping pipe on the rigs. So much has changed in the oil and gas industry since the first time my boots hit a rig floor. And I'm not sure if you're aware, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of what a cathead is. But the first rig I was on was one of the last rigs in Canada to have a cathead. It's almost like a tire rim welded to the side of an engine, spinning at really high RPM, which you wrap a rope around that's attached to a clevis, which you hook your drill pipe up on the pipe floor, and you use it to pull it up the V-door to the floor. Now, this practice was eliminated shortly after because it's extremely dangerous, a practice that was there for many years. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in this ever-changing industry that's changing faster today than it ever has, we have to listen to the experts in the industry, and here we do, and it's paying dues in the province of Saskatchewan. Our administration has also taken significant steps to ensure that Saskatchewan's businesses thrive through increased procurement efforts. Take, for example, our procurement of steel from Evraz, demonstrating not only our commitment to local employers, but also our dedication to fostering a robust economy within our own borders. By supporting these local businesses, we effectively strengthen our economy and decrease our reliance on external markets, including markets in the United States. Another way this government is protecting all of us from tariffs was by delivering a balanced budget and putting Saskatchewan in a position of strength. Our government understands that economic expansion is not solely achievable through the U.S. market. That's why we are actively focused on reducing Saskatchewan's reliance on exports to the U.S. by increasing our presence in international markets. Securing sales to a more diverse set of global partners will enhance our economic stability. In addition to these economic strategies, we must look to expand vital infrastructure projects. This government continues to push forward with plans for developing our ports, pipelines, and rail systems, essential projects that are vital not only for Saskatchewan but also for Canada as a whole. We need to ensure that our province remains a key player in the national framework, promoting trade and commerce across borders, not just with the U.S., but globally. Furthermore, our Premier and government, in their vision for Saskatchewan, has emphasized the importance of a strong and united Canada, a principle we hold dear as the Saskatchewan Party. Indeed, we have not once suggested that Canada should become the 51st state. Those words have arisen repeatedly from the opposition's commentary. Instead, our Premier just reminded us the other day of our party's 8th guiding principle, the constant improvement of Saskatchewan's economic and social conditions within a strong and united Canada. We strive for a continuous improvement of Saskatchewan's economic and social conditions. This cooperative, diplomatic spirit with the rest of the country is paramount in addressing any concern. As a government, we stand firmly opposed to the carbon tax that affects every individual and family in Saskatchewan. You can see our efforts at work, as Saskatchewan has been carbon tax-free now for 30 days. We recognize that the carbon tax places an undue burden on our residents, impacting their purchasing power and the livelihoods of everyone every day. The removal of the carbon tax has allowed us to work towards a sustainable economic environment that grants our citizens stability and growth, making everyday necessities more affordable for everyone. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to address the notion that our neighbours to the west pose a threat to us directly and immediately. The political landscape can often be treacherous, especially in times when true leadership is required. Good thing we have that in Saskatchewan. Hear, hear. However, I must remind this Assembly that the only party stoking the flames of fear is, in fact, the opposition itself. The opposition has said, we're in a crisis where a crisis does not exist, while our government focuses on addressing real issues that affect the people of Saskatchewan and our economy. In conclusion, the motion presented by the opposition reflects tactics that seek to mislead the public about our intentions as a government. We will continue to work alongside other premiers, federal ministers, and Canadian business leaders to engage the U.S. government constructively, emphasizing the harm tariffs will cause to not just Saskatchewan, but the entire Canadian economy. Let us remember now more than ever that our focus must be on uniting our province and ensuring the prosperity of our citizens, rejecting divisive rhetoric, and standing firm on our guiding principles. For the sake of Saskatchewan, let's move forward together, proudly as part of this great country, while nurturing our own unique identity. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Kenora-Pali.
40 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to just add a few points to our tariff plan. Our government is aligned with all other provinces in the need to take counter-action against unjustified tariffs, including stopping the purchase of U.S. alcohol and reviewing all government procurement to prioritize Canadian suppliers, within the goal of reducing or eliminating U.S. procurement. We support efforts to increase procurement from Saskatchewan-based employers, like the recent announcement by Saskatchewan Crowns to increase procurement of steel from Evraz in Regina. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The 65-minute period has expired, and the 10-minute period, question and answer period, will begin. And I recognize the member from Weyburn-Bengoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the Liberal Party having completed their takeover of the NDP, We now know for certain that there is no difference between the two parties. Now it's time to find out what these members opposite really believe in. Did they support the Liberal NDP in the election, or did they support the actual Liberals? To the member from Athabasca, did you support the federal candidate in the North that has previously been a Liberal, then an NDP, and now a Liberal?
I recognize the member from Athabasca.
Thank you for the member opposite question, Deputy Speaker. You know, it's pretty funny that we actually got to this point. I knew the question was going to eventually come, Mr. Speaker. But you know what? Us as Northerners, one of the things that was done for a long time is that our people collaborated. Yep. And we listened to people, and we listened to our elders. We heard many teachings, Mr. Speaker. I haven't once came into the Assembly, neither forth and talked about who it was that I was going to vote for during the election. All I did say, Mr. Speaker, was that the people of the North would eventually have their voice in the Assembly, and also that in the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker.
Here, here.
Recognize the member from Regina South Albert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Second day in a row, there's an awful lot to unpack from the comments put on the record by the member from Martinsville, Blairmore. She talked about how, you know, when you run out of facts, you run on fear. So the Premier ran out of facts when he didn't run on cost of living, healthcare, or crime in the last election, but instead change rooms. She said people in Saskatchewan are in a pretty good spot. Did she mean the hungry children, Mr. Speaker, referenced today in question period? She said the Premier's out educating on our behalf all around the world, Mr. Speaker. Was that what the Premier was doing when he made us an international laughingstock by defending Colin Thatcher for 5 days?
Here.
I fail to see how that question related to the motion. I'll ask another question to be asked, please. I recognize the member from Carrot River Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The opposition has certainly changed their tone since the American election. The member for Regina Elphinstone has said, quote, "Any political agenda that takes climate change seriously doesn't have space for the KM Trans Mountain expansion." And that same opposition opposed Saskatchewan's representation at COP28. Those members also ran on a platform that included a commitment to cut Saskatchewan's international trade offices in their recent platform. But now what? They suddenly support international engagement and want pipelines. To the member from Regina Northeast, why did it take the opposition so long to support our government on international trade office and policies that matter?
Recognize the member from Regina Northeast.
And this
thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a pleasure to rise and to answer a question. Quite frankly, I'm not sure how the other one didn't apply on our side, but absolutely. Oh, yes. All right, let's answer the question then.
Questioning the Speaker's decision is not appropriate. I'll ask you to carry on with your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we are debating today is that the Assembly opposes Donald Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state. And as I stated in my last reply, continuing to insert red herrings into the debate that have no place there is absolutely not going to distract me. And quite frankly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is a little tiring to hear from the side government about how we simply don't know about the economy on this side, and about stating things that aren't in fact factual. So I could go into a 20-minute discussion and debate about this, or I could simply say that yes, we know what the heck we're doing on this side with the economy, and no, this isn't a debate about every little nitpicking thing that is good or bad that side government thinks that they can throw at us. Let's get on with the next question.
Recognize the member from Athabasca.
Speaker, so I spoke about there's treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 in this province, Mr. Speaker. Can the member from Martensville Blairmore please tell me if there was any consultation done with the separation of our province to this country? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, economic impact of separating from Canada and their response. Was it a terrible idea, Mr. Speaker?
I recognize the member from Martensville Blairmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the member opposite for the question. I appreciate that question, and on this side of the House, we have never discussed the fact about separation. There is no speaking about separation, and there is no consultation, of course, because there is no talking about separation. We absolutely hold all of our communications and relationships with all of our treaties very seriously, and if there was any speaking on any part of anything that we do in this government, we do consult, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear, hear.
Recognize the member from Kenora-Pelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two parties ran on fear in the last election, the NDP and the Liberals. Now that the NDP have been essentially taken over by the Liberals, it is clear that they're the one and the same. Despite our government being consistently opposed to tariffs and Donald Trump's annexation comments, the opposition NDP continue to spread fearful rhetoric, just like their federal counterparts. To the member from Regina Northeast, in this past election, did you support the Liberal NDP parties that ran on fear, or did you support Conservative campaign that focused on hope?
That question was listed for the member from Regina Northeast, and I'll ask her to respond now. Thank you.
Merci, monsieur. Well, I guess that's what those eyebrow looks at me were about before, that I would be getting a question. Mr. Speaker, we're in a crisis where a crisis doesn't exist. Can we get back to what's at hand here? And can we actually seriously look at this debate? Because quite frankly, I don't think it's funny, and quite frankly, I don't think the rhetoric from the member opposite and the little eyebrow glances are funny. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Regina. Where are you from? South Alberta. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. To the member from Martensville Blairmore, would she confidently go out onto any corner in her constituency and defend this government spending $1 million for a junket in Dubai?
Good question. I recognize the member from Regina, from Martensville Blairmore.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. I am absolutely happy to go out on any corner of my constituency and absolutely defend everything that we do as a government, because we do it for the people of Saskatchewan.
Recognize the member from Kindersley.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was just released today that Saskatchewan had the second highest economic growth in Canada in 2024 at 3.4%, more than double the national average of 1.6%, creating more opportunities and jobs for Saskatchewan residents.
The 65-minute period, or the 75-minute period has expired.
Private members' motions. Item number 1, MLA Thorstenson.
I recognize the member from Kindersley-Bigger. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong. I'm sorry. Apologize for that. From Cutknife Turtleford. My apologies, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I am honored today to rise to highlight an extremely important issue for our province. Mr. Speaker, at the conclusion of my comments today, I'll be moving a motion that will seek to work collaboratively to undo some of the harmful policies that have been implemented on the province of Saskatchewan and our nation as a whole over the last decade. Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, we had a federal government that felt it could impose its will on the province of Saskatchewan. It completely disregarded provincial jurisdiction. The Trudeau government, propped up by Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, brought forward numerous regulations that handicapped the people, businesses, and industries that make Saskatchewan home. The first of these that comes to mind is, of course, the carbon tax. Even how the carbon tax was announced was a slap to the face to the people of Saskatchewan. At a meeting of provincial environmental ministers, which was supposed to be about discussing how to address climate change and any potential carbon pricing scheme, then Federal Minister of Environment Catherine McKenna rolled a TV in for them all to watch Justin Trudeau announce that they were implementing the carbon tax without consultation to the provinces. Our Minister of Environment at the time, now our Premier, was the first person to show his opposition to the way in which this was being announced and implemented, and walked out of the room. He said, "I guess there's no point in us being here then, is there?" That is what Justin Trudeau considered to be consultation. Mr. Speaker, we were the first province to take the federal government to court over the federal imposing the carbon tax on the people of Saskatchewan, an effort that the opposition called a pointless crusade. I can assure you of one thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The residents of our great province did not feel it was pointless, and neither did the many other jurisdictions that joined us in our fight as we took it all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, I know the consumer carbon tax is on hold, and hopefully it will stay that way into the future. But there is still the industrial carbon tax, which will drive up costs of everything we as Canadians consume. It'll drive up steel used in the car you drive, the pipelines that move our oil, the rail cars that move our grain and potash, and so much more. And let me tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the companies that are buying the steel to build those products will not be absorbing that cost. They will be passing that cost on to the consumer. It'll drive up the cost of fuel, fertilizer, concrete, electricity. All of those increased costs will get passed down to you and I, the end consumer. Speaking of electricity, Mr. Speaker, that's another area where the federal government has intruded on provincial jurisdiction. It's clearly set out in the Constitution that power generation is under the purview of the provinces. Justin Trudeau's clean electricity regulations are not only unrealistic, they're unconstitutional. Our government fully intends to continue to provide the residents of Saskatchewan with affordable, reliable electricity from a variety of sources, now and into the future. Sources that include a mixture of renewables, such as wind, solar, and hydro, as well as continuing to use our bountiful supply of natural gas and coal, and potentially nuclear. Mr. Speaker, the Trudeau Liberal government attacked our hard-working oil and gas workers, as well as the Saskatchewan economy, by imposing rules and regulations that would cripple that industry. Bill C-69, commonly known as the No More Pipelines Bill, would make it virtually impossible for any new pipeline development to move our product to Tidewater. This has a devastating effect on our energy sector that has to look for other options of moving their products to their customers. Of course, that means a lot more of what I like to call mobile pipelines. Long trains of car after car after car of high-quality crude oil moving across the country. Mr. Speaker, that also has an effect on other industries as well, due to our limited rail capacity. Many other industries use our rail system to move their product to port as well. Taking some of that capacity away to move something that is easily and safely moved via pipeline creates rail backlogs and customer uncertainty. Think of all the agricultural products we produce right here in Saskatchewan that would benefit from access to more shipping availability. Wheat, canola oil, peas, durum. I could go on and on. None of these products can be moved efficiently or economically by any method other than by rail. Other Saskatchewan industries also use rail to get their products to their customers. Our potash and forestry sectors use rail because, quite frankly, rock and 2x4s don't fit down a pipeline. Mr. Speaker, another way in which a Trudeau Liberal government punished our energy sector is by imposing the methane regulations, which is, make no mistake, a production cap on oil and gas. Saskatchewan produces the most sustainable oil anywhere in the world. What the methane regulations do is limit the potential growth of an industry that is leading the world in environmental sustainability. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our GDP numbers were just released today, and our province is second in the country at 3.4% of real GDP growth, over double what the national average is. Imagine how great that number could be if all of these harmful policies imposed by the Trudeau-Singh coalition government weren't in effect.
Hear, hear.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I spent a lot of time talking about what the former federal government, led by Justin Trudeau, has done that has negatively impacted Saskatchewan. But today, there's a new government and a new Prime Minister. Some people are concerned that this is the same old Liberal government of the past and are talking about taking immediate and serious action. Let me assure you, Mr. Speaker, that our government, particularly two of us sitting here in this corner, are not running and lighting our hair on fire and running for the exits. Now is not the time for overreaction and panic. Now is when true leaders work collaboratively to come up with solutions that work for the benefit of all Saskatchewan residents. Our Premier and our government are prepared to do just that. Prime Minister Carney has stated repeatedly, both during the campaign and since being elected, that he wants to work with all provinces to build a better, stronger, more unified Canada. I sincerely hope that's the case, Mr. Speaker, and that the Prime Minister will direct his government to abandon all of the harmful policies set out by his predecessor. Then, and only then, will Canada truly become a stronger and more unified nation. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Liberal takeover of the NDP is complete. After listening to former NDP MLA turned Liberal MP Buckley Boulanger on the Evan Bray show earlier this week, I'm hopeful that this is the case. I am hopeful that Mr. Boulanger spoke of looking forward to working with the provincial government on many fronts, particularly when it comes to our natural resource sectors. I'm confident that this messaging came from the top and hope that all the Liberal MPs have received the memo. Policies matter, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The harmful policies of the past must be removed, and quickly, in order for our province and our nation to become the energy powerhouse we can and should be. As our Premier has stated, now is an opportunity for Prime Minister Carney to hit the reset button, to fix the federal government's relationship with Saskatchewan, and to work together to build a strong and growing Saskatchewan with a strong and united Canada. Mr. Speaker, that is why I am moving the following motion. That this Assembly call upon the new Liberal Government of Canada to stand up for Saskatchewan by eliminating Bill C-69, the industrial carbon tax, the methane cap, the oil and gas cap, and the clean electricity regulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved by the member from Cuttknife Turtleford that this Assembly call upon the new Liberal Government of Canada to stand up for Saskatchewan by eliminating Bill C-69, the industrial carbon tax, the methane cap, the oil and gas cap, and the clean electricity regulations. Is the Assembly ready for the question? I recognize the Deputy Government House Leader.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I couldn't agree with him more, and I adjourn debate.
The member has moved to adjourn debate. Is it the pleasure of the Assembly to adopt the motion? Carried. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I move that this Assembly do now adjourn.
This House now stands adjourned until Monday at 1:30. Have a great weekend and safe travels, everyone.